Hi everyone, it is time now for my brief history of the Sun Bowl, and later on we're going to have a treat for you as well. We're going to show highlights of the last time the Oklahoma Sooners played in the Sun Bowl, which was 16 years ago against Texas Tech. I know you're going to be looking forward to watching that. But before we get into the teeth of this episode, I'll go ahead and highlight the last two episodes that we're going to be airing. It's going to be our Oklahoma Bowl matchup show, which will have the week of Christmas, so please keep checking back with us on YouTube or on Facebook for that. We'll highlight the Oklahoma-Stanford matchup as the teams will play in the Sun Bowl in El Paso on December 31st. And then our final episode will be the Oklahoma postgame show, which will be the day after on January the 1st, in which I'll break down the results of the Oklahoma-Stanford game, go over the 4 keys to the game, and we will wrap it up right then and there for the 2009 season, and then we'll do it all over again in August of 2010. So believe it or not, counting this episode, only 3 episodes remain for the season. This season went real quick. But anyway, let's go ahead and highlight a bit the Sun Bowl. It is actually, believe it or not, the second oldest bowl game. It's always been played in El Paso, but it has not always been played in the same stadium. It actually started at El Paso High School for its first 4 years, starting in 1935. But the Sun Bowl realized that they needed a bigger stadium. So they built a stadium there on campus. They called it Kidd Field. Now, Kidd Field is still there to this day. They just don't play football there, and there's a reason why. You see, even though the game would be played at Kidd Field from the late 30s all the way to the early 60s, the stadium, as the years went along, ran into a problem. It wasn't expanding. They only had 15,000 seats. That kind of scared a lot of schools away because of the lack of seating capacity. So, Sun Bowl decided, you know what, we're going to build a new stadium. We're going to build it not too far away from it. So, we're going to have Sun Bowl Stadium, and so in the early 60s, Sun Bowl Stadium came into being. Now back then, UTEP was not called Texas El Paso, it was called Texas Western. But this is the stadium where Texas Western would play its home games, but it would also be the new home to the Sun Bowl, and it had double the seating capacity as Kidd Field, 30,000. And the stadium would expand as the years progressed. It's now over 50,000. In fact, over the years, they actually added seats behind the north end zone. Now, to this day, the south part of the end zone still does not have seats. But still, it is a stadium that has hosted this game, and it's hosted it for nearly 50 years. And of course, the Sun Bowl itself has been around for 75. This will be the 76th edition of the Sun Bowl, and against the second oldest bowl game, only the Rose Bowl has been around longer. The Pac-10, since the mid-1990s, has been represented in the Sun Bowl. But over the past 4 years, the Sun Bowl has had what you would call a unique bowl tie-in. You see, they always involve a Pac-10 school, but over the last 4 years, they said that in 2 of those years, you had to have a Big East number 2 seed, which is what they had 2 years ago with South Florida and last year with Pittsburgh. But the other 2 years, you had to have a Big 12 school, which they did 3 years ago with Missouri, which meant that this year it was mandatory for the Sun Bowl to pick a Big 12 school. Well, it was either going to be Texas Tech or Oklahoma, and since the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio got to pick ahead of the Sun Bowl, they decided to go, Alamo Bowl did, with Texas Tech University. That meant that the Sun Bowl got to pick Oklahoma. So that's where you have Stanford versus Oklahoma. Starting next year, the Sun Bowl will still pick a Pac-10 school, but they will pick as their other school the Atlantic Coast Conference's championship game loser, assuming that that team does not have a BCS Bowl tie-in. So it'll be ACC versus Pac-10 beginning in 2010, but there's no word as to how long that affiliation is going to last. So there you have it, a little bit of history of the Sun Bowl. Both Oklahoma and Stanford have played in this bowl game twice, and both times the teams have won. So neither team has lost in the Sun Bowl, but obviously that will change on December the 31st. So there you have it, a brief history of the Sun Bowl. We're going to take these next few minutes to show you highlights of Oklahoma's last appearance there. which was 16 years ago. That game was called the John Hancock Bowl. They were a corporate sponsor of the bowl game, and the name Sun Bowl was not used. And Oklahoma, they were pretty successful that day as they walloped all over Texas Tech. It was Big 8 versus Southwest Conference.
Down and 10 on the 20-yard line. Donald Marshall was the intended receiver, and here's a handoff to Bam Morris, and Oklahoma is right there. And they stack them up. And a loss of 3 yards on that play, and there is Mike Coates, who's really the one to watch. Paul but wound up with nearly a 43-yard average. Will be kicking. Darius Johnson, the top returner back deep for Oklahoma, on the 45-yard line, gets into Texas Tech territory, and Oklahoma will have terrific field position. Following that 18-yard return of the punt, it was Sean Banks who made the tackle for Texas Tech. So the Oklahoma offense, Cale Gundy is the quarterback. We've talked about him. James Allen, the freshman, and Dwayne Chandler starting in place of the injured Terry Collier at fullback. Albert Hall and Corey Warren are the 2 wide receivers. And the leading receiver for Oklahoma is their tight end, Ricky Brady. 2nd down and 8 on the 35. Play fake, and Gundy is going deep. And the pass is caught. Corey Warren makes the catch inside the 2-yard line. Verone McKinley defending on the play, and Oklahoma knocking at Texas Tech's door. Now with a full house backfield. And the first back through is Dwayne Chandler in for the touchdown. It didn't take long for the Sooners, and they lead it 6-0.
With a size advantage up front for that Sooner offensive line. They took advantage of it there on the play.
It was a great one. Kick heading over toward the 1-yard line. Matt DeBuck returning, and he is clobbered inside the 10-yard line. Great coverage downfield, and Oklahoma coming out fired up. That was Keith Sparks, who's a senior. Zach Thomas, the middle linebacker for the Red. Here is Gundy with a pressure, rolls out, and the pass is caught by James Allen. And James Allen gets close to midfield as he gets down the field. Dwayne Bryant, the free safety, making the tackle for Tech. A gain of 16 for Allen.
This will tell you a little bit of something of how much Gary Gibbs has gone away from the old days of the Switzer wishbone, wishbone, wishbone again. If you have to pass, what the heck, it makes the stats look good. But for all the passing that Cale Gundy's doing, this is a team that beats you with the run.
They send Hall and Warren to the right, and here is a jump pass caught by Ricky Brady. Dick Stockton, Randy Cross, and Pat O'Brien here in El Paso. On first down from the 21, and Robert Hall could not find a receiver, and Terrell Peters, just a freshman.
Pretty ticky-tack thing.
That's what I thought. Here's a great catch by Warren. He bounces off of Cat Adams and goes in for the score. Corey Warren made the catch and slipped away from Cat Adams, and a 34. Have to get to the 33. They're almost there now. And the pass is intercepted by Mike Coates. Mike Coates, the linebacker, downfield into Texas Tech territory, and out of bounds to snuff out that Tech threat.
This is a situation you got to keep an eye on Brady, the tight end in the red zone, a big part of a passing offense.
First down on the 15-yard line. Gundy drills it, caught, touchdown, and that's the tight end Ricky Brady, and his 2nd touchdown catch of the ball game. In this half, and he dives for the touchdown. So Bam Morris a factor as Texas Tech capitalizes on that Oklahoma fumble. First down on the 17 now of Oklahoma. Here's a rollout, and the pass tipped, and another interception. Another line of Texas Tech, and the give is to Gerald Moore, and Moore slides away, gets the first down, still in bounds, and dives, touchdown Oklahoma on a brilliant run by the final score, Oklahoma 41, Texas Tech 10.
Sooners ended it with one final punch there.
Yeah,
one
the last
score.
play, didn't even get to kick the extra point.
And this makes them Southwest Conference champs, is that right?
I mean, they just strolled through that conference.
They sure did.
But anyway, for the 2nd time in the Gary Gibbs regime, the Sooners playing in a postseason bowl game. For the 2nd time, they came away big winners. Today, Oklahoma beat the Texas Tech Red Raiders in the Hancock Bowl.
We want to mention Gerald Moore. I said it was a senior celebration. Of course, Gerald Moore, the freshman, with 2 touchdowns, 41-10 the final. Bill, coming up at 6, we'll hear from Cale Gundy and Ricky Brady. Bill?
Well, thanks, Rich. I know everybody was excited down there. I never did see, at times it looked like a good crowd. What was the attendance? Did you ever hear today?
It wasn't a sellout, Bill, but they were late showing up. You know, it wasn't filled up when we did our pregame show, but it was about 44,000, I guess, was the crowd on hand today, so not quite a sellout here, but a good crowd, and they had a good time, unless, of course, they were cheering for Texas Tech.
Well, that's their tough luck. Okay, thank you, Rich. We'll talk to you again tonight at 6. Some good news on this Christmas Eve.